Hello, good evening, and welcome back. This evening's story is Charity and Police break up UK's largest modern slavery ring from The Guardian. I will be going back and forth between The Guardian and the Mail, as they have more information between them. For example, the Mail says it's the victims' Europe's biggest slavery gang. It says living in abject squalor and working for 50p a day. So court jails 8 people from getting their spot 400 victims trafficked from Poland. And this gentleman here used to be a victim, but then he turned kind of spy and a reporter for them, kind of a Sonderkommander in the concentration camps. You know, the Jews that would then work for the Nazis only have a life expectancy of a few weeks, because then they'd also be killed and burned and their records expunged. So the largest ever modern slavery ring uncovered in the UK. Some have called it one of the biggest ever, so who knows. Uncovered in the UK has been broken up after a 3-year investigation into activities. Some of its 400 victims worked for as little as 50p a day. And this went on for 5 years. And they say 400 victims, and that the owners made about £2 million, which comes out to 400,000 a year. 400 victims, if they were all there all the time, that would be £1,000 a year. That's, what, £3 a day. And they were keeping 50p, so, you know, considering, here we have from The Independent, in a different article entirely, 1 in 4 adults has no savings, sky-high monthly outgoings and attempts to clear substantial debt before putting money away regularly emerge as the main reasons. Seems more reasonable, you know? It isn't, I understand. But their labour earned millions, yet too, for members of a criminal gang led by a Polish criminal family, which preyed on the homeless, ex-prisoners and alcoholics from Poland. So any vulnerable people. Gang members were jailed on Friday. Ranged from 17 to over 60. They came to Britain and they were promised jobs and accommodation, and they said, we'll be fine, but just pay it back. They lived in cramped, rat-infested accommodation, reduced to going to soup kitchens and food banks to get enough to eat. A great quote here from Judge Mary Stacey in Birmingham Crown Court. Any lingering complacency after the 2007 bicentenary celebrations of the abolition of the English Slave Trade Act was misplaced. The hard truth is the practice continues here in the UK, often hiding in plain sight. But we have some prison times here. We go June 2012 until October 2017. And given that, and it's 2 million in total, 8 of them, and it's 400,000 a year then, that's 50,000 a year, which is good, but you know, it's not even 6 figures. So if you're saying that they were amazingly wealthy, they weren't. And if there were 8 of them for 400 people, they could get more money working an honest job, surely. So that was misplaced expertise, if you will. Almost as if slave pay doesn't, or slave wages don't pay. And in fact, it's better to pay sweatshops than slavery, because then you have to pay for the accommodation as well. As bad as these people had it, and I will show you some photos soon. Investigation launched in February 2015 by West Midlands Police after victims were identified by the anti-slavery charity Hope for Justice. 51 victims made contact after outreach efforts at 2 of the charity's shopping centres. 51. And then they went, we should do something about that. Not 3 or 5 or even 20, but 51. One victim said he had the promise of work in England, just been released from jail. They said that they stood at the prison walls as well to get people. He was forced to do housing renovation work, decorating, painting walls, clearing gardens, cutting grass, labouring for up to 13 hours at a time. One guy who renovated a house for a day was paid with a coffee and a chicken. Odd. But it does seem like they agreed to this contract and obviously made a terrible mistake. But nonetheless, they said, well, we're going to pay for your transport, give you accommodation, and then you pay us that debt and the rent. And, okay, transport cost, rent and food. It's like, well, don't enter into that contract. And if you're in a similar position where you have a job you don't like and your rent is too high, then try and find a job with somewhere else. Rent somewhere else. Negotiate, bargain, barter. And if you get a job similar to yours but paying more, then go get that one. Or at least take it back to your own employer and say, hey, I've been offered more somewhere here, so either pay me more or I'm leaving. And if they don't pay you more, then leave. Same with find a different place to stay. And if it's as good as your place, or even better, but costs less, then go there. You don't have to live paycheck to paycheck, necessarily. There are other options out there. Do your best to get as much knowledge and experience as you can to put yourself in the best position you can be in. Use leverage. So, one worker died of natural causes. His leaders ordered his ID and personal effects be removed from his pockets before paramedics arrived. Prison sentences, yes. So, I won't pronounce these names very well. Ignacy Brzezinski, he was sentenced to 11 years. He broke his leg from bail at the courthouse, and now he's on the run. It's great phrasing there. Another leading conspiracy, Marek Czernik, jailed for 11 years. Justina Przejrzycka, a female who played a matriarchal role, welcoming new arrivals, was given 5.5 years sentence. Half, right. Marek Brzezinski made regular trips for 9 years. Natalia Smuda, another female, 4.5 years. An recruitment consultant, Juliana, final female, 5.5 years. Wojciech Nowakowski, a one-time victim, was given 6.5 years. Jan Stotowski, only found guilty, was given 3 years. Victims can never get back what the traffickers took from them financially, emotionally, physically, and psychologically. We hope the knowledge their abuse is now behind bars will help them as they move on with their lives. Even though they have said that they enjoyed their life in a Polish prison better, and we have some photos here of what they were put through. So he said, initially everything seemed okay, later on they started treating me like a thief. They lived in conditions like these, with rotting. And in fact, he says, Mr. Lemon said, in Poland when I was in prison, it was in better than being at this house. Then we have the Bentley and £13,000 in cash. One man had to wash in a canal. Victims were reduced to recycling used cigarette butts off the street, going to soup kitchens and food banks to get enough to eat. And through doing the latter, at least 2 of them were able to then find an outreach and say, hey, this shouldn't be happening, help me please. And recycling cigarette butts, just try to not smoke in the first place. I know that doesn't sound easy. I know it sounds simple, but it is not easy. And it's the same thing, alcohol and nicotine are a sign of weakness because you're distancing yourself from reality. Do something to make reality worth being in. Live in the moment, live in the present. Don't null it, because otherwise the pain of failure isn't as bad as the pain of regret. They say that 350 more have been through the gang's hands than the 90 victims the jurors heard, who had since either returned to their homeland, could not be traced, or were too scared to come forward, which suggests that they could at least find a way out of it. Although if they tried to leave their home, they were tailed and followed. Some more images of the condition they were living in, and they used a duvet around the toilet instead of repairing it, because it was leaking. And they say that the reason that they wouldn't complain, gang forces would humiliate, threaten or beat them up, while house buyers, previously trafficked individuals, turned trusted informants, kept an eye on the workers, like Sonderkommanders. And we have some examples. One victim who complained about living conditions and pay had his arm broken, was refused medical care, and then ejected from the accommodation because his injury left him unable to work. In which case, go to the police. Another was stripped naked in front of others, doused in surgical chemical iodine, and told that the gang would remove his kidneys if he did not keep quiet. Again, go to the police. Gang seized identity cards, raised the victim for national insurance, opened bank accounts in the victims' names using bogus addresses, while their criminal masters also claimed benefits without their knowledge. And so any money they got from there, they would then take it to the ATM, get them to take their money out, and then take it from them. It says, frog march to cash points, withdraw money until they owe debts for transport costs, rent, and food. The charity said. So, in the example, if you're going to be followed, then, as I always implore people, learn martial arts so that if you're put in a situation like that, you can still get away. And if anybody tails you, you can at least restrain them long enough for help to assist with you with the situation. Just go knock on the door next to you. So it's led to believe to be the biggest such modern slavery prosecution of its kind in Europe. And thankfully, it's finally over, and they do give a number there. I believe 8 conspiracies convicted of modern slavery and money laundering offences made £2 million from their criminal enterprise, all of the backs of their exploited workers' labour. And I say that's over 5 years, so 400,000 a year. 8 of them, that's 50,000 each. Let's say they were following me, controlling me. You couldn't leave the house because you were being followed. You couldn't just go for a walk. In Poland, when I was in prison, it was better than being in this house. Didn't do this job for long. In a week, it would be 12 to 13 hours at a time. So yes, that is the story today, and I would definitely encourage you to speak up, speak out, because 90 people, 51 came forward, but over 400 were there, which means over 350 didn't come forward, and therefore they were making it worse for the other people because they didn't come forward. So if you find a tyrant, speak out, speak up, report it, make sure that people know these things are happening, and do your best to try and stop it, because many people will appreciate your actions later later on, and you'll appreciate your actions straight away. Do be sure to get as much education as you can so you never get in these situations. And if you are in one to a lesser extent, then you can still negotiate and get a better position somewhere else, in which case you can then use that as a bargaining chip in your current employment and accommodation status. That's my advice to you. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think below, and I will see you next time.